All right, what's going on, guys? We're back with more picks and predictions. This weekend, we have Michel Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez at UFC Vegas 99. It's a pretty decent fight night card. Some of these fights are kind of ass, but, near the end of the year, you get some ass fights since the UFC has to give every fighter 3 fights at least offer them that. So near the end of the year, you see some random matchups. Some of the early fights are pretty random, but aside from that, the Michel Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez main event is actually pretty fire. It does matter to the middleweight rankings. And yeah, let's quickly recap our bets from UFC Vegas 98. We had an amazing card. I think we went like 11 for 13 on picks and 5 for 6 on bets. So let's quickly recap those bets and then hop into the predictions for this card. All right, so for UFC Vegas 98, we had an amazing card betting-wise. We had a total of 6 bets, and 5 of them hit. The only one missing was Haddon and Tyra, both money lines. As you can see, all these bets were money line bets last week. I think a lot of the props were kind of priced pretty badly, and I think all the money lines had a bunch of value. Clearly they did. But yeah, Tyra ended up losing. He didn't end up looking as good against Royval. I mean, on the feet, he had nothing for Royval, which was interesting. So something to note moving forward. But yeah, in total, we had 6.5 units in, profited a total of 4.71 units. We had two 2-unit parlays. Tamarov and Dawson, both of them look like absolute monsters. We knew what Dawson was. Tamarov, that was his UFC debut, but he looked like an absolute problem in the flyweight division. Then we had Garimbo, who had a really good performance, and Carpenter, who was a lock. Both those 2 units parlays hit, and then a unit on Pilastri to win. I really liked her line last week. She ended up getting the nod on the scorecards, and then Enjo Kwani had a good performance. Daniel Rodriguez, kind of shaky round 1, but ended up pulling it off, especially round 2 and 3. Really picked up the pace on Alex Morono. Cashed that one in. And then Pat Sabatini. There was only 2 underdogs that won this entire card. One was Brandon Royval, which we got wrong. And the other one was Pat Sabatini, which we sniped. So, shout out to all the analysis and stuff. Clearly, it seems to be working out. Pat Sabatini at plus 145, half a unit, sniped that underdog. And yeah, had a great card, 4.71 units in profit. Check out kopicks.win if you want to hop in this premium. It's $20 a month. You get to see our entire bet slip for every single card. And if not, we also have a free Discord. You can come in, join the community, talk to people, just discuss fights that you're considering betting on and stuff like that. So yeah, great card, great recap. Let's move on to the predictions for UFC Vegas 99. All right, first fight on the card is Robelis Despaigne versus Austen Lane. Now, Robelis Despaigne, we know, is the Olympic Taekwondo bronze medalist. He is really good on the feet and especially in space. He has insane power. He had those 3 MMA fights in a row that lasted like 5 seconds each. And then in his last UFC fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta turned into a Nurmagomedov and just laid on him for 3 rounds. So there's a big hole in his game when it comes to the grappling. Now, he is minus 440. People do expect him to beat Austen Lane, and I'm going to pick Robelis Despaigne to beat him. Austen Lane's going to have to do the same thing that Waldo Cortez Acosta did, which is just have a 3-round grappling heavy game plan to get through Robelis Despaigne. But I don't think he can do that. I don't think he's as technical when it comes to the takedowns. He was an ex-football player, so he has those football tackles. But at the end of the day, I think this fight stays on the feet, and I think Robelis in space gets the knockout. All right, now the second fight on the card is Alice Ardelean versus Melissa Martinez. Now, this is one of those trash women's MMA fights. Both these women are pretty low level. Alice Ardelean is 9-6, and she's coming off a loss to Shauna Bannon, where she actually didn't do too bad, and I think that was a short notice fight for her. And this time, Melissa Martinez is the one on short notice, I believe. She hasn't fought in over 2 years, where she lost to Elise Reed, so that's kind of what we're playing with right now. This is a pretty garbage matchup. I don't really even know how to break this down. You guys know, in these type of fights, anything can happen. From my understanding, though, if this fight stays standing, which I think it will, Melissa Martinez is the more powerful, better kickboxer between these 2 women. And then if this fight goes to the ground, I don't think Martinez has anything to offer on the ground. So I would be careful when it comes to fights like this. Realistically, this fight's going to decision. You bet the overs and stuff here. But Melissa Martinez, I think, keeps the fight standing. And then if she does, I think she definitely beats Alice Ardelean on the feet. And then if this fight does go to the ground, then there's going to be some issues for Melissa Martinez. But I'm going to pick Melissa Martinez to win this fight. Once again, super low-level women's MMA matchup. And, it's probably going to be pretty boring. And, yeah, we'll roll on to the next one. All right, up the card, we have Jessica Penne versus Elise Reed. I'm going to lean Elise Reed in this fight. She's 31. Jessica's 41. So there's a 10-year age difference there. And I'm just going to go with the younger fighter. It's low-level women's MMA. You know how this goes. There's 3 fights back-to-back-to-back. So it's going to be fun to watch. Realistically, the bet you want to place here is probably the over. These are all going to go to decision. The Elise fight, the Jessica fight, and the Joselyn Edwards fight. All these fights are going to go to decision. But, yeah, I'm going to lean Elise Reed to win this fight. She's a younger fighter. She has more to fight for. She's kind of been alternating wins and losses. She loses to good opposition. Maybe Jessica is a slightly more talented and skilled fighter, but does that matter at 41? I don't think so. I think Elise Reed has more to fight for. I think she should come out a little bit hungrier and get the win here. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. All right, and next fight on the card, after we get to watch Alice Ardelean and Melissa Martinez, and then Jessica Penne and Elise Reed, after we get to go through that hellhole, we finally get to Joselyn Edwards versus Tamires Vidal. So this is a back-to-back-to-back shitty women's MMA matchup, and all these fights going to decision as well. So, this is going to be interesting. Breaking these down is just kind of boring as fuck, too. I'm going to go with Joselyn Edwards, though, to win this fight against Tamires Vidal. I think this fight stays standing. I think on the feet, Joselyn Edwards is just a little bit cleaner of a striker. She is coming off 2 losses, one to Aylin Perez, and Aylin Perez is looking pretty good, and then the one to Nora Cornoli, which I think was a pretty close decision. I mean, Nora Cornoli won by unanimous decision, but if I remember correctly, I think a lot of people were in agreement that Joselyn Edwards might have won that fight. And then on the Tamires Vidal side, she lost to Montserrat Rendon, which is, in my opinion, not a good loss to have. And then Melissa Gatto knocked her out. So she's got a couple losses, and before that, she had that flying knee knockout win on Ramona Pascual. But at the end of the day, I think this fight stays standing, and I think on the feet, Joselyn Edwards is just a little bit better. On the ground, if it goes there, it'd probably lean Tamires Vidal. But yeah, I think this fight stays up. I mean, it's probably going the distance. Joselyn Edwards probably squeaks it out. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. All right, now up the card, we have Brad Katona versus Jean Matsumoto. Jean Matsumoto is a minus 250 favorite, and I think it makes sense. I think a lot of people are pretty high on him. Talent-wise, he has insane talent, a really good jiu-jitsu, and he's really good in space as well. He has great Muay Thai. So, he is 15-0, so that is a crazy record. He's coming off that win against Dan Argueda where he got the gilly, and Dan Argueda actually won round 1 in that fight and was, doing his, regular pressure-heavy wrestling game plan. And similarly, Katona's going to have to do the same thing to beat Jean Matsumoto, not get caught in any submissions because his jiu-jitsu is really good. And, just pressure, wrestle, hold him up against the cage, stuff like that. Make it really dirty. In space and in general, Matsumoto just has way more pats than Brad Katona in this fight. So I'm going to pick Jean. I just think that he has more ways to win, more paths to victory. And yeah, Brad Katona's going to have to be very, very specific in how he approaches this fight. He's really just going to have to hold him up against the cage for most of the time and win minutes that way. Pull off basically like a Mario Batista. And I just don't see me able to pull that off. So I'm going to go with Jean to win this fight. All right, next fight on the card, we have Matheus Nicolau versus Asu Almabayev. Asu has looked great since he's been in the UFC. He's from Kazakhstan. He's 20-2. He's been a favorite basically every single fight, and he's a very pressure-heavy wrestler, great at taking the back. Coming off that performance against Jose Johnson, who's the 6'1 flyweight at 125 pounds, which is just insane. Yeah, he was able to dominate Jose Johnson on the ground, and he didn't find a submission. He rode it out for all 3 rounds, which is interesting. But now, this fight against Matheus Nicolau, a lot of people are probably going to pick Asu Almabayev, including me. I'm picking Asu Almabayev to win this fight. He is a slight favorite at minus 180, and this is a jump up in competition from Jose Johnson. Matheus Nicolau has been around. He's coming off that loss to Alex Perez. Before that, a loss to Brandon Royval. Both of those were knockouts, so his chin is kind of shot. He can get knocked out. Thing is that Asu is not really known for his hands. He does have hands. He's shown that, but those performances were more on the regional scene where he's used his hands. So, in the UFC, he's been like a really pressure-heavy wrestler. That's been his path to victory. And with Matheus Nicolau, he does have a 93% takedown defense. So it's going to be hard to take Nicolau down. I think it's going to be more of Asu taking the back, standing, and stuff like that, controlling him that way, and then maybe like some trips or something to get him to get Nicolau to the ground. It's probably what it's going to be looking like. But I think this fight could be a bit closer than people might think. I wouldn't say Asu is like a crazy lock, but I'm going to pick him to win. I think he can pull off like some of those rounds that Tyra pulled off against Royval last week, but just a lot better than Tyra did it. But I mean, on the feet, if he can get the takedowns and Nicolau can push him off and keep him in space, aside from Nicolau's chin, I think as a pure striker, I think it's not bad to say that Nicolau is better than Asu as a pure striker. So something to watch out for. It is a big jump in competition, but I'm going to go with Asu to get the win here. All right, to kick off the main card, we have Darren Elkins versus Daniel Pineda. These are some OGs going back and forth. Daniel Pineda is 39 years old and Darren Elkins is 40 years old. Daniel Pineda is coming off a 2-loss streak to Alex Caceres and Nathaniel Wood. The Nathaniel Wood loss is aging pretty well. And then on the Elkins side, he's coming off a win against TJ Brown. That was maybe about like a year ago. So, this is an interesting fight. Daniel Pineda is 28-16, and he's never won in a decision. Every fight of his that's gone the distance, he's lost, and he really only wins by finish. And Darren Elkins, on the other hand, is actually pretty durable, pretty tough. I don't see Daniel Pineda finding the finish on Darren Elkins, like potentially, but the last time Darren Elkins was knocked out was by Cub Swanson, and that was almost 3 years ago. So that's interesting. I don't think that Daniel Pineda finds the finish on Darren Elkins here. I think Darren Elkins can tough this out. I think he can also wrestle Daniel Pineda. So I'm going to go with Darren Elkins here. I think he's a slight underdog. This line is going to be close to pick him. And yeah, Darren Elkins is going to be the pick to win this fight. All right, up the card, we have Mudaerji versus Charles Johnson. I'm going to go with Energy to get this one done. Now, Charles Johnson is probably going to be pretty close to Sue's level on the feet, maybe a little bit better. I think he might have a little bit more power, but Sue will be a little bit quicker. So I think on the feet, this fight is pretty close, but I think Charles Johnson is just a little bit more dangerous on the feet than Sue. And then obviously we know with Sue, there's a big grappling hole in his game. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, both by submissions, both by arm triangles, or one triangle choke and one arm triangle. So, Sue's coming off those 2 submission losses, and if Charles Johnson really wants to wrestle and grapple in this fight, he definitely can. The only reason why I wouldn't lean too hard on that when it comes to the prediction is because I don't often see Charles Johnson going for that. If he comes in with the mindset to use to mix it up, then for sure. But I can also very easily see Charles Johnson just like battling this fight out on the feet and not mixing it up. In which case, I think this fight can get a little bit closer than a lot of people think. Charles Johnson is the favorite in this fight. Currently, he's about a minus 200 favorite. And on Tapology, 91% of people are picking him. So yeah, I definitely think it's a little bit closer than that. There's no way 91% of people should be picking Johnson. Charles Johnson is good, but he's not great, and Sue is pretty talented on the feet as well. So I'm gonna go with Charles Johnson. I think he's slightly more dangerous on the feet, and if he does want to mix it up, he can. But like I said, I wouldn't rely on Charles Johnson mixing it up necessarily. All right, and for the co-main event, we have Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips. I'm gonna go with Kyler Phillips here. He's a massive favorite, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Kyler Phillips is probably better than Rob Font everywhere. Kyler Phillips has a better ground game than Rob Font. He could definitely take this fight to the ground if he wants. And, Rob Font is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. The one win coming as Adrian Yanez, who he knocked out. But then his 4 losses, obviously, to all really high-level opponents, Davison Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, Chito Vera, and Jose Aldo. So, he's fighting the best of the best in the division. But at the end of the day, I think Rob Font's time is done. He's 37. We know what he is. He's going to want to stand on the feet. And Kyler Phillips looks super light on the feet, super quick. He looked great in his last fight against Pedro Munoz. He also looked great against Raoni Barcelos. So, yeah, he's also 29 years old. So 8 years younger than Rob Font. I'm definitely going to go with Kyler Phillips here. He's a massive favorite, and I trust him to get it done this weekend. All right. In the main event, we have Michel Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez. I think this is actually a pretty good main event for a fight night. This fight definitely matters to the middleweight rankings. Both these guys are at the bottom of the top 15, and, we're going to see who's more legit out of these two. Both of them are 5-0 in their last 5 fights, looking great, racking up these win streaks. And, yeah, we're going to see who wins. I'm going to lean Michel Pereira to get the dub here. I think that's mostly because of just stylistically how he matches up against Anthony Hernandez. We know Hernandez is really good on the ground, but it's just hard for me to see Anthony Hernandez dominating Michel Pereira through grappling in this fight. I think a good chunk of this fight will be standing up on the feet, where I think Michel Pereira is just going to be a lot lighter, a lot better. And just like based off his last few performances, he's just kind of dominated people on the feet. Anthony Hernandez is getting people out of there too. He has the submission on Roman Kopylov, which is great, but I just don't see him taking Michel Pereira down super easily and dominating him on the ground, which is why I think his path to victory is pretty narrow. And I think Michel Pereira is going to be able to, stop that one path, and he can impose his way, winning by decision, racking up points on the feet, potentially getting a knockout. And yeah, I just don't see him being a slouch on the ground himself. So yeah, I'm going to lean Michel Pereira, but I think this is a really close fight. Michel Pereira is a slight underdog, but seems to like the public is picking Michel Pereira to get the win here. About 63% on Tapology. So yeah, going to be a great fight. I'm going to lean Michel Pereira. And yeah, that wraps up the predictions for UFC Vegas 99. All right, and that does it for all the picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 99. Once again, please, we love people joining our Discord, so join up. It's absolutely free. The link should be in our bio on all our socials. And yeah, join the Discord if you're ever considering betting on a fight and want to discuss something, get another opinion from not just me, but other MMA fans as well, that's what we're here for. And yeah, the Discord is starting to really thrive, so join up, ask any questions in there you want, anything that you're thinking of, any spots that you think are cool betting wise. And then aside from that, if you do want to support us or check out our bet slips, it's on kopicks.win for $20 a month. So yeah, that's up to you if you want to become premium or not. But at the end of the day, the Discord is super free, so I think you guys should definitely join that. And yeah, let's all have a great weekend and good luck on your bets.